Hello, Leo. This is your personal month forecast for November 2023. We start out the month still recovering from that full moon lunar eclipse that highlighted the Scorpio Taurus axis. That just occurred on Saturday, October 28th. And the reason why I wanted to mention that for you is because, there's been a lot of activity in Scorpio, and then with that Taurus full moon eclipse, obviously there was a lot of activity in Taurus as well. Both Scorpio and Taurus square you. They're those placements and transits, and even now as we start out November, having Sun, Mars, and Mercury all in Scorpio, there's a lot of squares, affecting you. So a lot of tension, a lot of restlessness. To some extent, we all experienced a lot of anxiety, restlessness, and change over the last few weeks with eclipse season. But you especially were, very affected by this. So part of me wants to say, are you okay right now? Because you probably have gone through a lot of change and intensity, so you're still kind of dealing with that as we start out the beginning of November as well. We still have Sun, Mercury, and Mars all in Scorpio. Again, they're squaring Leo. They're basically just showing that this is a time of immense change for you, immense activity. So it doesn't necessarily have to be stressful or anxious. Just get out there, make some kind of change. This is the time of for change for you. Start something new, etc. Do something to release all that energy you have right now, because you're probably feeling more energetic than ever right now. All right. A different way of looking at this is, when we start out the month, Sun, Mars, and Mercury are in Scorpio. That's your fourth house. So that's pointing to a lot of activity in your home environment. You may be speaking there. You may be more busy there, learning, speaking, with Mercury in the fourth house. Maybe whoever's close to you, whatever you're familiar with, these types of things and people and activities, that's where you're spending a lot of time. You're thinking more about these things. You're communicating or learning more. With Mars in the fourth house, there may be some restlessness, anxiety, irritability, maybe even like fighting to some extent. And then with Sun in the fourth house, there's just generally, a focus. Sun shines a spotlight. It directs the focus. So it just points to you having more energy at home, spending more time there, just being focused on home and family generally more, as well as anything else that's very familiar to you. That's generally the focus as we start this month. I wanted to go through the month and give you some key dates of some significant changes for you. So the first would be Saturday, November 4th, which I'm showing the chart for now. This is the day where Saturn turns direct at 0 degrees Pisces. So like I keep saying to everyone, Saturn is turning direct. That means that its effects are becoming more literal, more direct, just like it sounds like, right? We had almost kind of a break from Saturn energy when it was retrograde, because its effects were more indirect, I guess you could say, more subtle, more spiritual or whatever. So now with Saturn turning direct, we're experiencing Saturnian energy in a more visceral way. So that really heavy top-down energy, it's asking all of us to some extent, in different ways, to be more realistic, more grounded. For you specifically, Saturn is in your 8th house, okay? So that has to do with your commitments, your obligations, your investments. Definitely financially, any like bank accounts, credit cards, stocks, debts, inheritance, taxes, etc. All that financial stuff, but much of it also has to do with, where are you investing your time, your energy, your emotion, how are you supporting yourself in a long-term way? Obviously, much of that is financial, but also how are you supporting yourself emotionally? What do your commitments and obligations look like between you and significant others in your life, right? So these are all the areas where you may experience increased pressure and obligation, as we go forward from November 4th because of Saturn turning direct, right? So this doesn't have to be a bad thing. Yes, Saturn is definitely a tough love planet, but just be realistic with yourself. You are Leo. You're known for being very proud, and you take ownership of yourself, right? So just apply that same type of energy to those commitments, obligations, investments. As long as you do that and you're being realistic with yourself, Saturn will reward you. It doesn't always have to be bad, okay? All right, so kind of heavy energy, but potentially good depending on how you use it. Moving forward to November 8th, this is the day where Venus finally leaves Virgo and enters Libra. So let's start out by talking about where Venus has been. So over the last several weeks with Venus in Virgo, it has been in your second house. So this means that you've been, uh, the most probable scenario is that you've been making more money than usual over the last few weeks, but you may also have been spending more money as well. So it's kind of a trade-off with Venus in your second house. That's what I often find. So making more money, but also spending it. And you may have been likely to, you may have been spending that money on pursuits or pleasures that kind of help to make life more pleasurable, basically. So that's not entirely a bad thing. We all need to do that. Of course, depending on how you tip the scales, you may have been making more than you've been spending, or you may have been spending more than you've been making. It kind of just depends on the specifics of it. So this is changing now. So November 8th, Venus leaving Virgo, entering Libra. This is your third house of neighborly connections, siblings. It's short distance travel. So this means that the nature of your pleasure and desire is changing. It's changing for all of us. But for you, you're more prioritizing or valuing those social connections. These are like casual social connections, like friends, acquaintances, neighbors, coworkers, siblings. Not really those deep or intense relationships. These are just like, people you see on a day-to-day basis, things like that. That's more where you may be prioritizing and kind of just enjoying those connections, enjoying those casual conversations, connections, enjoying your neighborhood or your city, things like that, your town or wherever you live in. That's generally what's indicated by Venus entering your third house. All right. I do want to say too, there's always two different ways to look at this. With Venus is now moving into a sextile to Leo. So whatever placements you have in Leo, Venus is preparing to sextile those. Sextile is a harmonious aspect. This means that Venus is kind of agreeing with you. It's not like so dramatic to the point, as if Venus was in Leo. It's not like you're like totally the center of attention. I mean, you are Leo, so you're always the center of attention. But relatively speaking, Venus is basically like supporting you. I guess that's all I was trying to say. Hopefully that makes sense. November 10th, now only a couple days later, we have Mercury changing signs. And this, I think, is very exciting. Not only do I personally think it's exciting, I think it's exciting for you because, we talked about at the beginning of this forecast how planets transiting through Scorpio, on the one hand, it just means more of a focus at home or with family, familiar pastimes. But it's also intense for you. Scorpio is intense for anyone, but especially for you because of those square aspects, right? So with Mercury entering Sagittarius, Sagittarius is obviously a sister sign to Leo. It's a fellow fire sign. So this is going to be an easier energy for you. It's going to be more stable, more fun. Sagittarius is your fifth house. So this has to do with, creative endeavors. So in other words, Mercury entering your fifth house of Sagittarius, that just indicates that you're thinking more about your creativity. You're learning more, or you may be more busy in general with creative projects, self-expression, also things having to do with children or playful energy, kind of embracing your inner child and expressing yourself through creativity, or maybe spending time with children. That may or may not be part of that for you. That's going to increasingly become the focus throughout the month as we have Mercury, Sun, and Mars all enter Sagittarius. So Mercury is just the first one to do so on November 10th. All right. Okay, November 13th, we have a new moon in Scorpio. So yes, the focus is gradually shifting to Sagittarius, the fifth house, creative endeavors, fun for you. However, we still are in Scorpio season. We still have some kind of heavy Scorpio energy. November 13th, excuse me, new moon in Scorpio at 20 degrees. All right. So, okay. So how do I approach this? A new moon is a new beginning, just like it sounds like, right? It's not necessarily a new beginning in the sense that it's the best time to like launch some kind of huge project. It's not a super active part of the lunar cycle. This is more the time for planting a seed. So I always say it's a really great time for reevaluating your intentions. Specifically, again, Scorpio is your fourth house. So what are your intentions regarding your home, your family, your foundation? Okay, reevaluate these things. Think about these things. What do you want? How would you like to improve or maintain these areas going forward? Okay, this is an excellent time to think about these things on and around Monday, November 13th. All right. And a different way of approaching this would be to just say Sun and Moon and Mars really are all conjunct in Scorpio. You may have placements in Leo that are squared or being squared by these Scorpio placements, by the Scorpio new moon. So this could be a very critical time for you. It may be restless, anxious. This is the energy of square aspects. It's tense. But the good side of it is it's pushing you to make some kind of change. That change may be centered around home and family or your foundation more so than other parts of your life, but it can spill over into other areas as well. So get out there, take some kind of action, make some kind of change today. This is going to be intense, but the more you can release that intense energy that you have and put it to use, you're good at that, right? You're Leo. Do that. Make some kind of change. Take the lead. Start something new. That would be a great time to do so around this new moon. All right. And honestly, last thing I want to say about that is most new moons are very peaceful, but for you, because of that square that it's making, that's the only reason why I say this may actually be very tense. It may feel more like a quarter moon than a new moon because of those squares it's making to your Leo placements. Okay, jumping forward a bit to November 22nd, Wednesday. This is the day where Sun leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius. So again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about first we had Mercury enter Sagittarius, the increased learning, communication, busyness surrounding creative endeavors, having fun, self-expression, etc. Now Sun is leaving Scorpio. It's joining Mercury in Sagittarius. So the Sun really just controls the whole general focus. It's where your energy is. So I think this is great. I think this is something to look forward to. Sun and Sagittarius. Sagittarius is jovial energy. It's holiday energy. This is, holiday times in the West or in America or what have you. So this is a time where you probably thrive. Sagittarius has so much in common with Leo. It's agreeing with your energy. It's supporting what you already are. It's generally an easy time, all else being equal. So definitely something I think is worth looking forward to. And again, just the general focus is increasingly becoming on enjoying yourself, expressing yourself, having fun. If you are a creative person, now could be an extra time of, boosted creativity for you. All right. Okay. Friday, November 24th. This is the day where Mars finally, Mars is the last of this trio. Since Mercury, Sun, and Mars have all been kind of hanging out together lately, Mars is the last of these three to leave Scorpio and enter Sagittarius. And again, you're going to hear me kind of repeat myself a little bit. This just means the focus has shifted I don't want to say entirely, because of course there are other planets, in our solar system as well. But as far as the inner planets go, the focus is very, very much on Sagittarius now. It has completely changed from the beginning of the month by November 24th with Mars entering Sagittarius. So again, I would say that's objectively good news for you. This is easy, it's fun, it's pleasurable for you. Yes, Mars can bring kind of irritability or competitiveness, but it can also bring drive and ambition. So it's showing, with the three of these planets there, if we can call the Sun a planet, you're thinking, learning, communicating about your creative endeavors and, fun and things like that. You're also just generally focused there. Your energy is there with the Sun in that area. And with Mars there, you may be more driven, you may be more ambitious, you may be more goal-oriented, you've got more stamina, more energy, again, when it comes to those creative endeavors, pleasure, having fun, being playful, maybe hanging out with kids if that's part of your life, etc. And I just want to note as well, with Mars entering Sagittarius, we now have no more Scorpio planets. So, a lot of that tension and all how that intensification of how so much has changed for you. There was so much change for you not only during the eclipse season in October, but really through much of November as well. So that has finally dissipated to some extent, and you're moving into more stable, more grounded territory where you can kind of just relax a little bit more and have fun. And that's what you like to do. You Leos, you're probably the best at having fun. So I like seeing this for you. I want to be careful to be objective. Those Scorpio placements and transits that we experienced recently, they may have been very valuable in the sense that, you may have made some much needed changes over the last several weeks. But again, you can't just help to be excited for easier transits, right? So that's all I'm saying there. Last thing we're going to talk about in this forecast is November 27th. There is a full moon. It will be at 4 degrees Gemini. So this is a lot of fun. I think it's objectively fun, but specifically for you, this is a lot of fun. It's a very active time because the full moon in Gemini, it's opposing the sun at 4 degrees Sagittarius. So like I always say, full moons, they're not just about the moon. It's about the sun and the moon. It's about that whole axis, that whole opposition. In this case, it's a Sagittarius Gemini opposition or axis. And for you, these are pretty easy signs to blend with or work with. These are, this is a relatively easy full moon to experience for you. Sun is in your 5th house. Moon is in your 11th house. What does the 5th, 11th house axis have to do with? It has to do with your creativity, your self-expression, your individuality, and how it relates to the group. How are you how how are you a functional part of a larger system or collective? How can you relate to and be part of a group in a way that not only doesn't diminish your individuality and self-expression, but actually honors and empowers it, right? That's what we deal with when we combine the 5th and 11th house. I know that may sound very abstract and, like, what is he talking about? On a more general level, this is just going to be like party energy for you. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very active. To some extent, that's how it is for everyone, but especially for you. It's culmination. It's fun. Sagittarius and Gemini both have to do with learning and expressing and experimenting. Let's go on an adventure. Let's throw caution into the wind to some extent. And again, you are no stranger to this energy either. I think this is something that you're going to have a lot of fun with and embrace pretty readily. So yeah, I'm happy that I've been able to give you some potentially very good news. Okay, but that's all I really have to say for November for you. Last thing I want to say is I just want to note how dramatically different the chart is by the end of the month compared to the beginning. At the beginning, there was so much yin energy. It was very heavy, and it's just very different from your nature. So at the beginning of the month may have been a lot more difficult. There was so much change going on. So many, 3 placements, 3 planets in Scorpio, and then Venus in Virgo. Compare that to the end of the month where we have Sun, Mercury, and Mars all in Sagittarius with Venus in Libra. I just know that by the end of the month, you're going to be feeling so much stronger and you can like breathe easier, if that makes sense, and maybe kind of like flaunt your stuff and have fun in that way that we all know and love you to do, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's what I have for you for this month. I hope that helps or was interesting, and thank you for watching.